Hello, it's Erica and welcome to another demonstration. Today I'm going to show you how to make your die cuts a little bit different by using watercolour. So this is the effect that we're going to be achieving today. I'll put that to one side. So I've used a die cut from Nellie Snellen and it's of dragonflies on a water lily and bulrushes. So there's other designs in the series as well. So that's the one we've got today. I've already die cut it. The trick is I've die cut it in watercolour paper, and that will just make sure when we use watercolours on them that we get a really nice effect. So that's our die all ready for us to go. I've pre-cut the card so it's all ready for layering, and that's going to be our 3 layers. We've got the base card, which is a pearlescent card, then we've got the background, which is a watercolour card, and then we've got our die cut. So I'll put the card to one side, I don't want it to get it dirty. So this is our main piece that we're working on. Today I'm going to be using a Winsor & Newton travel watercolour set. So it's just a little set. It's quite handy because it's got a nice little brush that is all ready to go. And I never use it for anything else but watercolour, to keep that brush as nice as it can be, because watercolour brushes do need to be looked after. So here we've got our colours. To just get them activated, I'm going to spritz them with some water, and this will just get the colours going. And I've also got my water pot to add water and to clean my brush. So to start with, I'm going to do the background. So I've got a rough idea of where the die cut will sit, and then I'm going to use a thicker brush, just a bit wider, and I'm going to do a rough wash over the back of the background. So we'll get a bit of water and pick up our colour. You can always use a spritzer to add some water into our well. So I think that's enough colour, because it's quite strong colours as it's an artist pigment. Okay, so I'm just going to do a very squishy, loose wash over the paper. I wanted to add a little kind of interest, not be perfect. So it all looks a bit of a mess at the moment, but you'll be surprised when that goes on. You can see it's going to add real interest. Now I have to dry that, so quickly I'm going to heat that with a heat gun. So we're back with our watercolour background. I did want to point out that not all card is the same. This is a watercolour card. You will have to try out card just to see if it works on it. Some of my card doesn't like excessive amounts of water on it, and it just goes bobbly, and then you just end up in a horrible mess. So always test your card out to make sure it will take the water. The next thing I want to do is add that like a spattering effect, and for this I'm loading up pigment and water into that well, and then I'm going to use a Ranger Distress spatter brush, just because it's the easiest way to get the water on there without getting it everywhere. So what we do is we just pick up a little bit in the bottom of it and then spatter it on. Gives a really nice effect. The best way to clean this is not to put it in the pot. I tend to run a tap over it so the water falls off. So with watercolour, the easiest thing might just be to just wipe it. There's not a lot of paint in the brush anyway, so, and always just get the brush covered in paint on the tips only, and then it will be so much easier to clean. I don't know if you can see, but from this the paint has travelled all the way up to the ferrule, and I'm never going to get that out now, so it's always better just to keep it in the tips, and like I said, when you're running it under the tap, run it downwards so it doesn't travel up to the brush. So we'll just have a quick clean up. See, I wasn't worried about getting my table dirty with the watercolour because it is only watercolour, so it's easier to clean up. So once again, I'm going to dry it, but first, before I do that, just with the bigger brush, I'm going to put some paint on the edge of the card, and this will frame it. The nice thing is it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, the wobblier it is, the better. I think it gives it a better look. You can see I'm just using the edge of the brush on the edge of the card to give me some kind of guide, so I'm not whooshing right into the middle of the card. So you can see there it was halfway on. And even in places, let the watercolour puddle darker in some places to add some interest. Looks better when it's not all even. So I'll just just clean my brush, and then I'll dry that, and that's the background done. So there's our background all dry and ready. I'm not going to worry too much about it being bent, because it will, as long as I stick it down with a strong adhesive onto my card, it will all stay flat once that's happened. So as you can see, the die cut goes on top of there now, and you can see it adds some interest. I've not been tidy, and that's just added interest to that background. Our next stage is to get this watercoloured. This is where my little brush will come in, get some water on it, and we'll start off with a green. I think this one's called sap green, and I'm not getting it too strong a colour. You can always add more, it's harder to take away. So you can see there's more than enough colour there. I think the border, I think I'll do in blue to match the background. Bearing in mind not to go over my dragonfly there. But you can see it's quite quick. In fact, the looser and quicker you are with watercolour, the better it tends to look. There's nothing worse with over labouring when you're watercolouring. Somehow it just deadens it, flattens the piece of work. So I've got a little bit of a yellow ochre there, and just going to blob some colour on those. I think they're bulrushes, aren't they? I believe so. So my big lily pad there, I want to make a stronger green, so I've got like a viridian emerald green here. I'll mix it down a little bit with the sap green because it looks a bit too acidic. So mix it a little bit and add it, and then you see it's not like too contrasty, but it's enough to make it look different to the other green. Right, again, I'm not being desperately careful. I'm going to use my border, and I'm going to use a slightly darker blue. There's an ultramarine here, so I'm going to mix that blue in a little bit. If at any time I think, oh no, that's too dark, just the tissue, you can take it off and start again. So it can be quite forgiving, as long as you don't, once you let it dry, it's harder to remove. But watercolour always will activate again, so there's always a resolve to it. Just dab a little bit off. Don't want it too heavy, although they always dry lighter. But you can see it's better to build up a coat and go darker the second time around than go in heavy in the first place, because then you've got a little bit more control. So there we go. Right, my dragonflies, now they've usually got a similar blue-green hue to them. So, oh, that's worked out nice. More of a turquoise. Add a little bit of lightness to it, we don't want it too heavy. Oh yes, that's worked out lovely. So let's put that down on our dragonflies. Usually got a bigger body by their wings there. And then just to make those wings stand out a little bit more, I'm going to put a blue behind it. But I am going to use an iridescent medium on the wings to make them shine, like you usually see when you're watching dragonflies. Their wings catch the light because they're iridescent. So that's the first stage done. I'll just add a little bit. I've got the tips of the ball brushes. There we go. Job done. Take a little bit off. The next step now is I just wanted to put a little bit of an iridescent sheen on the dragonfly, so I'm using the Art Alchemy paints from Finnavar in the Opal Magic pink, blue and violet green. So I think I'll use violet green on the bodies and the pink blue on the wings. Again, remembering this is an acrylic paint, and also it's quite thick, so I will just, and though I said I wasn't using acrylic paints for my watercolour brush, and I just did, I should be very, very careful though. I'm only getting it on the tip. So we'll paint a little bit of this. It's not really going to notice. And I did say I was going to use this on the body and then used it on the wings. Oh well. It's usually how it goes, isn't it? And then a little bit more for the other one. But I shall be ultra careful with this brush because it needs special care. So keeping that clean. But I'm sad using so little of it. And then this one for the body. This one's the pink blue. Take a little bit of it. Then run that across the body of the dragonflies. And there we go. Give my brush a good clean. And also I don't want to leave that in my tray either, because it's an acrylic paint and not a watercolour. So just take the time to get that off completely, because watercolour will always come off these palettes, but acrylic is not so forgiving. And it's gone. So there we go, that's our dragonflies. It's still a bit wet, so they're not shining as much as they should. When it dries, they really shine. So I shall just go and get that dried and I shall be back. Okay, our card is nearly finished now. I'll put the watercolours to one side. You can see we've got our background and now we've got our main piece. So it's a case of laying it out onto the card. For those who don't know, I like to use the Herma sheet for the die cuts. It's just sticky dots on a sheet of, well, non-stick sheet, and it's a removable glue. So what I do is you pull back this piece and you apply the glue to the back of the die cut. So we'll put it down here and then rub the back. So we've got the adhesive on the back, so very carefully pull it back. This is a watercolour card, so it's a little bit more fragile than cards I'm used to using. But as you can see, as I'm pulling it back, there is adhesive on the back of the die cut. A little bit tricky, but we'll get there. Probably should have started from that end and worked up, but never mind. So this is all sticky now. But the nice thing is it's removable and replaceable, so you can lift up and put it down if you get it in the wrong place. So hopefully we're there. Dragonfly needs a little bit of coaxing. I think we're straight. But see, you can lift it up and put it down as many times as you want, which is really useful when you've got something like this that you want to get straight. So that's my basic of the card, and then simply I'm going to stick it down onto that card there. And here's the other one that I made as well, so you can see, but you can see every time you do it, it's going to look different. So I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching.